Thank you very much for staying tuned. It's Strictly Politics on News24, Silverbirdnews24 that is, and we're looking at very many issues, that particularly the ones that have dominated the political landscape. The big issue over the week has been the NSAS protests across the country, and we have a retired military intelligence officer, Captain Ali Umar, as our guest today on the show. Welcome once again.
Thank you.
Before I go into the other issues, what conclusions have you reached from what you have seen so far? The protests, starting slowly and gathering momentum on a daily basis. And even when you think that people probably not turn out, more people continue to turn out. And then the kind of support on a daily basis. What have you reached in terms of conclusions, in terms of what has happened so far?
Well, my conclusions are quite interesting, and I'll share them with you. First, I start with our leaders, our politicians. That which they have been in denial of has finally come. That generational paradigm shift from complacency to what you can call outspokenness. We have seen a country of people that have been complacent, long-suffering, and suddenly, over time, we have generated a population that has some 102 millennials. There are 102 million Nigerians between age 18 and 34. Last time I checked with the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. 18 and 34 is the United States age for youth. We are about 200 million or thereabouts, 102 are youth. 18 and 34 fall within that age grade you call millennials. Actually, millennials themselves are in 3 compartments. The oldest millennials are like 39 years old now. They were born in 1981. Persons born from 81 to 96 are millennials. Persons born from 97 all the way to 2011 are super millennials. We call them new generation. And then persons born from 2012 to date are called Generation I generation, or even Generation Z. The media is not yet sure what to call them. And these 3 people, given the socioeconomics, the politics, and the technologies that informed the most productive years of their lives, are not like our leaders, who averagely are baby boomers. Me and you, probably, you may be millennials with all due respect, but it's more likely you belong to my generation, which is Generation X. Generation X are people who were born from 80 up and up to 71. Okay? Before that 71, let's make it 69, 68, backward, you have what we call the baby boomers. Then those that were born in the late 40s or in the late 30s up to 45, 1945, are industrial revolutionaries. All of us came at times when the technology, the economy, the socio-cultural tendencies and politics differed. The millennials are not people who connect with what the baby boomers who populate our leadership understand. So all these verbiages and grandstanding may find sense and meaning with me and my cohorts or my generation. It doesn't find no meaning with millennials. Millennials are not people you sit in a class and talk to and they have to go to the library to go and confirm what you said, which was what happened in my time. Millennials are people that before you are done with your lecture, Google has confirmed to them whether you know what you are doing or you don't know what you say. There are people who are used to getting solutions at the touch of a button. And there are 102 million of them. So our leaders will either connect with that or connect with that. Sadly, those are the 2 options.
So what you're saying is that we have a generation of young people who have access to a lot more information
than probably those leading them.
Okay, so, but what we have seen essentially is some kind of common interest, but it looks like it lacks leadership. I've heard quite a number of the protesters each time there is talk about your leaders. They say we don't have leaders. As a matter of fact, on social media, they keep saying we don't have leaders. So isn't that a problem? I mean, if there's no leadership, there's no direction. As a matter of fact, it took quite a lot of effort for you to have the points articulated, like we have the 5 points now. We didn't have this before the announcement that SARS was disbanded.
Yeah, a revolution starts that way. Along the line, you will connect with certain individuals that will become the arrowheads of such. But you see, the interesting part of this type of revolution to me is the fact that there's this realization that, look, the people have decided to take the bull by the horn, that we will begin to speak for ourselves. Now, let me quickly just run over this. There was a time, you remember, when speaking for Nigerians, it's the student union movement, when you had the CLO, the Civil Liberty Organization, and the Campaign for Democracy, and we were doing the bunch of the talking for Nigerians, agitating for issues to be solved. Along the line, they kind of died down, they faded out, and you now had the NADECO just before that continued to put pressure on the military, the Abacha era before the civil rule. After the politics came in, some of them got into politics, and NADECO kind of faded out. Then you now had the Trade Union Congress, the Nigerian Labour Congress, that began to speak for Nigerians. But you see, the organized labor most times speaks for workers. And if you look at the percentage of the workers in Nigeria, it's small compared to the number, the population of Nigerians. Yes. So most times they articulate the interest of workers. And the last strike called by organized labor, talking about the fuel price hike and the electricity tariff hike, the organized labor kind of disappointed most Nigerians, because when you thought they were going to act and bring us certain demands, they were negotiating and it was not effective. Now, just at the end of that failure, you now had this movement come out. So Nigerians are now taking the bull by the horn that, look, never we're going to look at the organized labor to speak for us. We can begin to speak for ourselves. And that is the positive point.
But the question is, how long can this last? Do you agree that the lack of obvious leadership for this movement would not be a minus somewhere along the line?
There is actually something you will have to understand again about millennials. We have been conditioned to think in a very, very, how do I put it now, streamlined way. We have been conditioned to expect that a movement should have a leader. Who owns social media? I want you to tell me. Nobody. Who owns social media? Nobody. Millennials are people who are used to having a situation where it's all possibility thinking. Look at the kind of hairstyles they wear. Look at the way they want to dress. The things they wear and call trendy today. In my days, I wear it to wash my father's car. But it's trendy, home and abroad. If you go to corporate organizations today, you're going to see MDs with dreadlocks. If you go to corporate organizations today, you're going to see what you call kitchenettes in the office. When I was younger in those days, you can't read the newspaper in the office. Today, you can do whatever in fact, everything about your office can even be collapsed into your phone. So you find out that our world is all possibility thinking led. And that appeals to this set of people who populate the country. Today, you cannot go and meet millennials and tell them we have set up a high-powered committee.
They don't even
on
understand
top
it.
of the situation. All those verbiages.
Okay, let's also look at, from what we've seen, now there seems to be some kind of a pro, if you like, government, or pro-police, or pro-SARS, like some people like to call it. We're not too sure exactly who, but we've recorded attacks on protesters in Lagos, in Osogbo, in Abuja, and in other places. The way the whole thing is going, isn't there going to be some kind of security challenge?
I don't see...
If the government doesn't really address the issues in good time.
What the government needs to do right now is three things. What the police need to do is also the same three things. The first one is their innovation ability needs to key in, if there is any. Your imagination ability also needs to key in with these millennials, and metacognition. Metacognition is knowing what you know, as in knowing what you know. Now, talking about that issue of security or the situation, escalating beyond what is, and people attacking, The attacks you see on these people can only strengthen the resolve. The attacks you see on those people can only tell the world that is observing that indeed it is true that peaceful protests are not allowed. I don't see how people who are protesting peacefully will draw armed attacks, and a police that is standing by watching cannot protect the peaceful people. So who are they going to protect? The machete and the weapon-bearing people? And who would actually want to carry weapons in this very charged situation and go after people in their tens of thousands? Were there 10,000 armed people attacking this youth? I read about an instance where they even overpowered their attackers. Some were injured in the course, took them to hospitals, got them treated, and handed them over to the police. So at the end of the day, what you have just done is you've just helped escalate the cause. You've just helped underscore what they are talking about. You've just confirmed.
Okay, very quickly, before we take
look at the
angle of the NBA.
My own argument about this is, how long are we going to continue with this? We must face the fact. You see, let's not keep dancing around the issue. I said the other time before we started that everyone is grandstanding. You see every governor come out and make statements.
It's a good time
it's now identifying. And it's all about grandstanding. Let's face the fact. We're just gradually coming out of a pandemic. Businesses have not worked for a very long time. How long are people going to sit at home when you sit on roads and they cannot access their businesses? And you think the person will now sit down for too long? You see, yeah, a revolution is starting. But you see, the more we keep, you're trying to correct the ills of the society, are we now creating another ill? If you see that somebody said he spent 6 hours, another he spent 8 hours to get home.
I spent 11.
Now, how long, if your livelihood depends on that business you ought to access, and you cannot get there, not because you were stopping the protest, but because the roads are blocked. Now, you just heard what the military said. Okay, that we will continue to defend the nation and are offering a help.
The military angle is another matter. We're going to come to that, but let's quickly see what the NBA has got to say about all that has happened, between the protesters and the security agents in the country.
The NBA has set up a central help desk to receive complaints from and provide support to members of the public on harassment by security agencies and other public interest matters. The platform for submission of complaints are by email to publicinterest@nigerianbar.org.ng and by short messenger service or WhatsApp to the phone number 0706 210 8806.